So far you have learned different computing constructs that will allow you to create computing systems or software. But becoming a software engineer or a computer scientist not only requires that you develop sophisticated computing systems, but also requires that you own those decisions that allow you to make that system and also have additional responsibility to the society. In this video, I'm going to discuss what ethics are and what is its role in designing technology. So ethics are basically moral principles that govern our behavior, and they tend to be shared, which means they are created by a system or a bunch of people rather than by just one single individual, where some consensus has been achieved so that everyone agrees to some sort of principles or ethics in general. This branch of ethics comes specifically out of philosophy. So if you take a philosophy class here at UF, you might learn a little bit more about what ethics entails. Here in the example, we show you that ethics is distinguished from law along two different grids, which is sometimes there might be an element which is ethical and legal, something which is ethical and illegal, and there could be something which is unethical and legal, and unethical and illegal. Some of the examples here is, let's say if it is teaching CS1, it is both ethical and legal, while hiding slaves is considered illegal if we go back in like the 18th century, while it is ethical, of course. Another example is swatting, which is calling a SWAT team, for example, on homeless people. Like if you see some homeless guy, do you call like the police and ask them to handcuff them? Like that is both unethical and illegal. Another example is like, let's say donating, which is somewhat ethical and both legal, while if we take tuition hikes, sometimes the lines are hazy, which is it might be unethical for the student while it might be ethical for the institution because they want to create like more buildings and stuff. So like typically, like when we are discussing about some policy decision of a system, it could be both unethical and ethical, and the lines are really gray. So we need to have like debates before we can discuss or achieve a consensus on whether that's ethical or illegal. So ACM, which is the body that governs computer science, has defined a code of ethics which include a general code, which is shown here, and a code specifically for computing professionals. So generally, you want to contribute to the society and human well-being. You need to avoid harm to others, be honest and trustworthy, be fair, give proper credit for any intellectual property, which is you should not be using somebody else's property, and if you are using it, make sure it has all the licenses and you cite the resources, which we have already discussed. We also need to respect the privacy of others and honor the confidentiality. As a software engineer or a developer, you need to consider the impact of your decisions and own those decisions. Like if you create a software or let's say a web application, and if it provides harm to the society more than it provides benefits, then you need to take the ownership of that and bear the consequences. So under professional, ACM has defined that you need to strive to achieve the highest quality of effectiveness and dignity and acquire professional competence. You need to respect the laws and give proper credit where it is due when you are working with teams and stuff. Also, you need to make sure you access computing resources only when you are authorized. Like you should not be accessing like somebody else's email if they have not authorized you, or try to hack into different softwares. That's what it generally entails. Now, in general, we need to make sure the systems that we create do less harm. So in this slide, you can actually see there's a robot which was created that allows people, that allows medical professionals to conduct X-ray for another patient. But let's say if you were the software engineer for this robot and accidentally you let's say if the radiation for a normal X-ray is on the order of zero point 0.1 and you accidentally coded this as 1.0, exposing the patients to a radiation level which is harmful for their body, you need to make sure that you own that software and you are responsible for like coding that software. So you'll bear the consequences on creating such a system. So whatever you create, if it is not thoroughly tested, you need to make sure you do not allow it to be available in the markets and stuff. So computing has amazing potential. Like it can improve the well-being, it can increase prosperity, it can save lives, but it can also hurt people or kill people. And as a computing professional, an ethical computing professional, you need to make sure that you are responsible, which is, let's say if you are working tomorrow, you go and work for a large tech company, let's say Facebook, Google, or Microsoft, and although you are getting a paycheck from them, and let's say if they ask you to create a system that like destroys humanity, although they are not going to ask you that, but if let's say if they ask you to do that, you need to be responsible enough to say no to it. Just not making sure that oh, I'm receiving the paycheck and let's do anything unethical. But even though you are a part of the company, and if your boss asks you to do something, that doesn't mean that you have to do it. You need to speak out or have discussions on like whenever somebody asks you to do something that is unethical. We should always ask ourselves, even if we can, but should we actually do it or not? Now, I'll give you some examples on why this is really important right now in recent times. There have been so many use cases of software. Like this is one example, which is of the Compass system. I don't know if you know or not, it's being used. It was used widely by the courts in Florida to adjudicate, which is to judge whether a person can commit crime or not. And this system was like racially biased towards African American minorities, because it gave like higher score to African Americans than criminals, or than people who committed crimes who were white, identifying them as low risk individuals, while those who were African Americans or from a certain minority, they were categorized as high risk. And this system was being used actively in courts. So like you can read the article right here, and we need to have discussions whether such a system is ethical or not, and can it be used. So we need to be really careful when designing like such systems. Another example was a AI recruiting tool that was created by Amazon. So what it did was it was showing biases against a certain minority group or women. When recruiting women into a job in Amazon, they were giving less preference than males, so they decided to scrap it. But why design such a system in first place? Because if we have systems that take in the data which is biased, or let's say if the system itself is biased, we need to actively have conscious debates on how we can fix this, or whether we need a system like this in the first place or not. Now I would like you to watch this video with a use case. It is on self-driving cars. It's a very common problem that's being right now we are trying to address, which is this is a moral dilemma whether the self-driving car should kill, like let's say if it has to make a choice of either running through an old person or a child, which one should it what decision making strategy should it entail. So I would strongly recommend to watch this video, which I'm going to attach here. Thanks.